Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Sue10, and this is Nakedly Yours. So today we're going to be discussing daddy issues. I feel as though daddy issues are something that are not taken seriously. It's only kind of brought up or discussed when we are laughing at it. It's a gimmick, it's an insult. It's never actually discussed in depth. The real of it is never spoken about by the people that actually deal with it. But I know that the majority of us women have these conversations between ourselves with our girlfriends about it, and in a sense feel so alone because we're not having open discussions about it. And like I said, it's not being spoken about in a way of, okay, these are real issues that we need to talk about and heal from. Before we start, I would like my guests to first introduce themselves. Who would like to start?
You can start, girl.
Okay. They put me on the spot. Hi, I'm a medical PA and my name is Stephanie.
Hey, Stephanie.
I'm a mom of 2 boy and a girl.
Okay, brilliant.
There you go.
I'm Millie. I'm a midwife and a health visitor, and I'm currently 7 months pregnant with my first little boy.
Woo woo.
Yay.
Oh my God, that's so exciting.
I know.
We finally found out this little boy now.
Yeah.
Okay, that's so exciting. Okay, let's get straight into it. We're here to discuss daddy issues.
Mhm.
So I would first like to start with you guys introducing how this topic relates to you. Obviously, I know the story,
Mhm.
but our viewers don't. So, Stephanie, can we start with you?
Yeah, sure. Okay, my daddy issue. Let's actually speak about my actual father. So
Mhm.
I didn't actually meet my dad till I was 16. So growing up, I always had that thought like, oh, who's my dad? Do I have a dad? Is he alive? And all those kind of thoughts. It did make me feel bad, like I was in secondary school and had all these girls saying, oh, my dad bought me this and my dad took me here. And I just used to feel so left out. Like I just felt isolated,
Yeah.
So it really affected me. And I think my mum started to notice that. So she felt like, do you know what? I'm getting to an age where I need to know about my dad. So it's crazy because all my family members that are around me knew who my dad was. And when the day I met him, I was so shocked. I was like, oh my God, you know him? You know him? It's not like he was far. He was so
Yeah.
close, but so far,
Yeah.
So it's like everyone wanted to almost protect me
Mhm.
from, I don't want to use the word beast, but just protects me from this human being that wasn't loving.
Yes,
You
it wasn't going to be the healthiest.
It wasn't going to be healthy for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
So basically, my mum and my dad were engaged. They had a big party and everything in London. But he found out that I was a girl. And I'm Nigerian, I'm Igbo. So culturally, especially for a lot of Igbo guys, like, please do not insult me. I'm just saying my truth, yeah? Like, Igbo men generally don't respect women. And he was very upset that I was a girl. And I was his first.
Oh, wow.
So he didn't want me. That was basically it. But the fact that I was a girl, in hindsight, like my mum did the right thing in terms of not her keeping him away, because he made that decision to stay away and have his own
yeah.
family, but just to keep me away from knowing that person, that situation, that dark side, until I was probably ready to know.
Yeah.
Because obviously she was emotional for her as well, and like she had to deal with certain emotions when she was telling me the story and the background. And I think for me growing up, it really affected my view on relationships, how I saw men. I didn't respect men. To me, men were beneath me. I didn't understand being submissive. I didn't understand any of that. I didn't understand how a woman could be under a man, because I became so independent in terms of from a young age, like working for what I want. And I didn't feel like a man could come into my life and give me things that I could already get myself. So
I get
the only thing is that I still wanted to feel that love, that attention, but I was seeking it from the wrong guys. I was getting it from the wrong guys that knew and can sense that that's what she wants,
Yeah.
but we're not going to give her that. We're going to sleep with her. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And in hindsight, yeah, you could be in a relationship, but you're still sleeping with that person, and that person doesn't feel anything for you. Do you
Yeah.
understand? But
100%,
you're
exactly.
looking for love. Do you understand? So that's the angle I would say that, you know, my daddy issue affected me, where I ended up with the wrong guys. Not loosely, but just in the wrong relationships
Yeah.
that I was found myself into.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. Millie, could you explain to us why you're here today? How you relate to the topic of daddy issues?
So I grew up in a really lovely home till about I was 11, 12, and that's when my family started unraveling. So turns out when my parents got married, my mum was 19 and my dad was around 40. My mum's a pastor's kid, and they marry. My dad comes to London, then she comes to London. And as he's coming, he's like, "Oh, I forgot to tell you that I have 4 other children." And she's like, "Okay, hard pill to swallow, but I'll swallow it." Then they land in London. He's like, "I have 4 more."
Wait.
Wait, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. It's such a serious. I'm trying my best. It just took me off guard a little bit. So wait, can we just clarify?
Let's do the math.
Yeah. So there was 4 before, and then there's 4 after. That's correct, right?
Yeah.
So there was 8 at that point.
8. Yeah.
That's at that point.
Yeah. That point. Yeah.
Some women can't even manage 1 and 8.
Yeah. But I think he came to the UK with just my mum. So I guess they felt like, okay, it's a fresh start. Okay. I think my dad never said really he had issues with women, tried to like hide it. But I think as the marriage progressed and my mum had 1 kid, then she had 2 kids, she was a size 4, then she was a size 24. Then he started making comments like, "I'm not attracted to you anymore. I don't really like you anymore. Start looking at other women." And I think that's when my daddy issues started, because I could see their relationship break down in their home. There was a lot of domestic violence, a lot of verbal abuse. And I could see like my dad would constantly choose other women over me and my mum, or me and my mum and my brother. So I think that's when, as a black girl or as like a young person, you try to firm it and be like, "No, I'm better than this. I'm going to do so much better." I used to think my mum is so dumb, like lose some weight, you know, make yourself look nice. So I went to uni, I went to church. I was like, "No, I'm going to get myself together." But them issues was deep in me. And I think I really sort it out. I was doing the church thing. I was clapping and shouting. I was doing the amens. But I didn't really look into myself and see what are the issues in me. So I met somebody just like my dad, and unfortunately I got pregnant by him. And I'm in this situation now. And literally, if I'm not in the same situation as I am in, like my mum, it's probably worse. And I think it's the daddy issues that I grew up with that forced me to this point.
After your dad's come back into your life, what effort did he actually make the effort to now start playing a fatherly role to you?
Okay. He did make the effort. What he basically wanted was for me to come to his house, do sleepovers. Yeah, thank you. Like, that's what I was trying to say. Do you know what?
This pregnancy's got you just laughing.
I was trying to find a nicer way or easier way to do something. But at my big age, to be doing sleepover, like, my mum didn't train me to sleep at people's houses. So it was just like, that's how I saw him, as people. I didn't see him as, "Oh, that's my dad." Do you understand what I mean? So it was like, "I'm not sleeping at your house." So that always created a problem. I remember there was one time I was like, "Oh," and this was again from what I was seeing from other girls. I said, "Oh, daddy, can we go shopping?" And my dad's rich, so it's just like, "Yeah, spend your money." He's like, "Why am I going shopping with you? I'll just give you the money." Do you understand? But it's not the fact that I wanted his money. I just wanted your time. Do you get? But again, that's not what he was willing to do. So to him, it was just splash, give her money, and she'll respect me. But he didn't know the kind of daughter that he had. My mum knew the kind of person that I am, and she said, "You can't buy this girl. Money doesn't buy this girl. She's already working for herself." Do you understand? And this is why I didn't respect men, because it was like, you're trying to buy me off. Like, to me, how can a man try and buy off a woman that already has her own. It doesn't make sense. But he didn't make the effort to be like, spend time with me, to get to know me, what I like. Even with my passion, like I graduated from fashion design, he hated the fact that I studied fashion. But that's what I loved. That was my heart, do you understand, from a very young age. But you wanted me to go and study law. Yeah, some people can argue, yeah, Stephanie, you should have studied law because you could argue for days. But that's not what I want to do. Fashion was and still is my passion, and that's what I wanted to study. So, yeah, I would say that he didn't put in effort. He was more of a cash daddy.
But I would say give your dad time, honestly.
I can't, because like the last time I saw my dad, he was on his sick bed with metal in his leg, and I think I hadn't told him that I had my first child, and like he was upset at me because I had already spent an hour. Like my child and my mum were downstairs in the hospital, so it's like I kept them waiting. I think if you spend an hour in the hospital to see someone, I think it's fair. It's enough, right? Oh, go if you want. Then he tried to throw a bottle at me. Then I told him and I said, look, I have a child downstairs waiting for me. The boy that you didn't have, yeah, I said it. Yeah. Like you have to let these men know, do you understand? And I told him, and that was the last time. So I don't think that we're going to be building a bond anytime soon. That's just me being honest, you understand? Like, of course, don't get me wrong, I would have loved to have a relationship with my father. But because of the way things happened, it just didn't happen. And there's some things in life that you can't force. You just got to accept it and just move on.
Yeah.
If God says you're going to see your father again, and then it's going to, I can't stop it. But I personally will not go out of my way. Not that I have hate in my heart. I'm just moving on with my life. Do you understand? But I just probably wouldn't go out of my way to be like, I'm going to mend any of that, because I already know how he feels. So it's just best to like let everybody have peace, and you know.
Could I ask you a few questions around that quickly?
Sure.
I just want to address a few things that you said within that. Just so, why did you not tell your father that you had a child? Can I first ask that?
My dad's a very old-fashioned Nigerian man, and to know that I've had a child out of wedlock is abominable. It's an abomination. Do you understand? So, like, why would I put myself in, like, already I've got things that I'm dealing with. Do you understand what I mean? I can't now go and expose myself and be like, oh, and then that's another problem. I just didn't feel like I wanted to take on any more drama. Like I just felt like I just wanted peace. I just didn't want to say anything. I just felt it was just best for me just to keep quiet, because I already know the outcome. He's not going to be welcoming to it. He's not going to be like, oh, okay, that's fine. He's going to be upset, you know, like probably every parent would be, but that's going to be the end of the conversation.
Of course, I don't know your father. I can only go from what you're saying, so I'm only playing devil's advocate here. But do you think that there's any responsibility to be had on your side for the relationship you now have with your father? Because from an outside perspective, and like I said, I'm purely playing devil's advocate here, the resentment you have based on what's happened, from what I can tell, there doesn't seem to be the healing that you said that has taken place. And with that, I feel as though, of course, your father has to take full responsibility for his actions and the foundation he laid for that relationship. But if you did want to have a relationship, I feel as though the first step to that, outside of your father, of course, taking responsibility and doing what he needs to do, would be releasing that resentment, because I don't feel like any relationship can build on that resentment. So, of course, yes, your father is the way he is, and at this point, like you said, it's not necessarily possible in your eyes to have that relationship. But I think outside of it, how it is at this point, I think a lot of it is to do with the resentments that's there. I don't think it's possible to build any relationship on that resentment. So in a sense, he has to take responsibility for the first one. And I'm not saying any of it is your fault, but I'm saying now that you're older, the actions that are taking place now, responsibility has to be taken. And that's just something that not just personally to you, I will say to anyone that comes on the show or anyone in general. There is responsibility to be had on all sides once we become adults. I believe that as children, the lines are a little bit more blurred in terms of responsibility, and the older person, the adult, the carer in the situation is to take responsibility. Like I said to you before, it is not your you can't take responsibility for your father's actions, but you can take responsibility for your own. So with that being said, the question is, do you feel as though there is any responsibility to be had on your side for the way that your relationship is now? Not for how it was in terms of how it started, but how it is right now.
I mean, like, obviously, when I mentioned that, obviously, like, I healed from the daddy issue, I think that's in terms of, like, how I see men and how I would move forward in a next relationship. Like, I wouldn't have a daddy issue going forward. But in terms of my relationship with my dad now, yeah, it could be said that I could probably make that effort and approach him, see if we can speak about things. But again, if you already know what that person thinks of you or feels about you, it makes it hard to even approach them and just be like, let's talk. Because if they said they don't want to see you again, then I mean, especially as a mature adult, I'm pretty sure they wasn't just talking out of water. You know, it wasn't, you know, like that. And knowing my father's character, that's something that he definitely meant, because it was said again to my mum to make sure that we do not see each other again. So personally, I'm in a space now, and I'm sure a lot of people are, where I would just want to protect my peace. Do you understand what I mean?
I completely understand that.
So, I mean, it's a case of me dealing with it internally. But in terms of actually physically building a relationship or actually trying to mend something with my father, I don't think that's personally going to happen, even if I actually made the attempt to do so. Which, yeah, you could say like, yeah, okay, maybe I should actually give it a chance again and try to. But I just know that it's just going to bring bad energy. It's just going to be war, and I'd rather everyone just live their lives happy. Like, literally, I feel like everyone is in a good space how they are, and sometimes it's good to be separated than actually be together. That's just how it's supposed to be.
I would say never say never, only because with me and my dad, like, I think around 2 years ago, we actually got into a physical altercation at his house where I was boxing him with all the anger from my childhood, and he was boxing me back, and his wife actually had to come into the house and break us apart. I think my bra was ripped, like, it was physical, and I was thinking, like, I'm not talking to this guy again. Like, I've tried to do so much in life without you, and still it's not good enough. You know what I mean? And I think you don't have to recognize, but acknowledge that a lot of African fathers are broken themselves. They speak with money because that's the love language they were taught.
Of course.
And they're big on respect. So when you don't respect them, they are not going to respect you. But I think with my dad, he was brought to a humble place in life. And maybe your dad hasn't reached that point yet. But once he reached that humble place in life, because when we were arguing, he was like, I don't need any of my kids. I will never need any of my kids. I don't need your money. I will never need you guys. You guys live your lives. I'll live my life. So I was like, okay, yeah, cool. But I think once he reached a certain point in life, he realized that, yeah, I do need my kids. And once he reached that point in life, he reached out to his kids. We didn't have to call him. He started calling us and was like, hey, you guys okay? And we're like, yeah, are you okay? So I think, yes, do what's peaceful for you, but don't shut that door completely, because things will change.
Of course, don't get me wrong. Like, if one day, like, my dad, well, hard it is to say, like, came and looked for me, I will be open-minded to it. Do you
Yeah.
understand what I
Yeah.
mean? Definitely, because I'll be like, whoa, like you
Yeah.
actually came to look for me. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't be closed off or anything. Because I know the situation, I know what I know, and
Yeah, of course.
you know, it's
Yeah.
just
It's hard.
it's hard. Yeah,
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
When was the point that you guys recognized? Because of course, in retrospect, we can look back and we can say, okay, we had these issues and this is where we went wrong and all these things, just like we did. But at what point did you actually realize, and what was the trigger? What made you realize that this was something you actually had? This was a real issue within your life?
Do you know what? It took me a long time to understand the issue itself, understand my worth and how I saw myself, and how I allowed certain things to affect my decisions, my way of thinking, and things like that. So even after I had my daughter with someone else, like I went through the same situation again because I didn't understand certain things. I didn't value myself and all of that. So I think after having my second child, I really took a step back and was like, okay, why has this happened twice? Why am I in this situation again? Why am I with the same kind of guys that are controlling and but I'm seeing as in, oh, I like that. No, that's not normal. So I think after having my second child, I noticed that, yeah, do you know what the root is? My daddy issue and not having a man there who's my father to give me that fatherly, daughterly love, which I was seeking outside. So, yeah, it took me some years, but I'm in a place where I can be like, okay, this happened because of this. I'm not ashamed of it. I've learned from it and I know what I want now. So yeah.
For me, I think I always knew I had daddy issues growing up, because I think there's an emptiness in you as a girl, and you know when you're overdoing it with a guy, and you're overdoing it in general, and you ask yourself why, and you know the issue's there, but you don't want to address it, or you cover it up. I covered mine up with church, and I was hoping that in time I would change, but I never really directly addressed the issue. But there was a time where I was sleeping with my ex-partner. We're in a hotel. We just slept together. We just spent the night together. And I was thinking, like, yeah, this nice. This is good. And as we're walking down the hotel lobby, he's like, oh, I forgot to call this girl back. Let me call her back. It was a girl from church. And like literally, as I'm putting on my clothes, he's putting his clothes. He's like, you're right, yeah. Oh, your voice is so nice. My mouth was open. And this guy had the audacity to think I'm going to relate with you in the same way. That's when I realized, why am I accepting this? What's wrong with me? I mean, you have a lot of issues, but why am I here? And that's when I realized that now I've got some issues I need to deal with. So I think the week after, I changed my number. I started journaling. I went into some deep prayer mode. I started fasting because I really needed to see, why was I in this situation? Why was I accepting that dumb type of love? And I think that's when I clocked, like, nah, girl, you're broken. You need to fix yourself quickly before you become a mother.
So for me, I'm a very deep thinker. So I really psychoanalyze myself a lot and analyze what I'm in. I try to understand myself as much as I can. And like you guys have said, it was seeing the positions I was in and thinking, why am I in these positions? And also because I knew a lot of the positions my father had put my mother in, and I could see that I was in those myself. I think that's how I started recognizing that I have these issues, because I'm seeing my father in these men, and I'm like, why? Because from a very young age, I had said I don't want to have the relationship my mother and father have. Props to them, and I'm not trying to discredit them, but I just didn't want it for myself. So knowing that from a young age and then seeing myself go through things that I knew that my mother had gone through and that my father had put my mother through made me in turn very resentful to my father because I now knew what he had made my mom feel like. Then it made it very hard to have a good relationship with my father. On top of that, my father wasn't, it went from me being a daddy's girl to suddenly my father and I not having the same relationship like overnight. It just seemed like his love for me just ended. It was just like, you're letting out the bath, the water was just done, all the water had drained out, that was it. Having that big switch that I'd never understood, it seemed like it happened overnight. And then experiencing what I knew my father had put my mother through, it made that relationship very strained. And I had a clear understanding of the foundational relationships, the idea that you're taught to love, and the relationships you have, whether it be your parents or your friends, are the foundations of how you will go into romantic love. Because I had that understanding, I could then analyze and say, you should have done better. Also, I always wanted more for myself. So when my father wasn't acting in the way that he was meant to, why? I've never been the type of person to just accept. I'm a very inquisitive person, always asking questions. People do things to me now that other people might look at and be like, oh, she's just doing that. I'm like, but why? I don't understand that because my mindset's not like that. I would never do that to somebody. So why should I accept that? I've never been that person. So being that person, it's just like, okay, daddy, why? I always sit down with myself and ask myself why. When it seemed like my father didn't love me, it was just like, but why? And then it's how do I accept love when, listen, my father doesn't act like he loves me. At the time, of course. My father now has gone on to make a lot of changes, and I'm very proud of him. I'm very proud of the changes that he's made and the effort he's now making. Definitely took longer than it should have, but like I always say, you gotta take it where you can get it, and I take the good from the bad. So I'm just grateful for where we're at right now. But I was never able to accept the mediocre love. I've never been that person. I'm not gonna be made to feel like I'm asking you for too much by asking the bare minimum. You're giving me the bare minimum and treating me like you're giving me the world. I know what I deserve. I know that I'm gonna get more. So listen, my father or not, you either going to give me more, like the more I deserve, because I have a father that is giving me more. Listen, you might be my worldly father, you might be my biological father, but when I'm receiving an unconditional love from a father that is not here, the father that is here by by fire or by force, you're going to give me that love, or I cannot accept less. And that's the thing, like you said, love is taught. Of course, my father did not teach me love in all the ways that he should have, but I don't necessarily just see that was the only father I had. So where I know I had more of a father, and I had an amazing mother and an amazing family. That, like, I grew up in a way where I didn't necessarily have much, but I had love and I had a family and I had just so much life. Bob Marley says life is riches. I was the richest person when it came to life. So where I had all of that, and I did originally have a father that was like the most amazing father, and it switched overnight. It gave me more grounds to stand on to say, I'm not accepting this because I know you can do better. I know you can be better. Listen, no, this is not going to work. But it came across in the wrong way at times because I was young, and obviously my father is my elder. It's just like, you can't tell me. But me, I'm like, listen, I'm going to tell you, I'm not accepting this.
Yeah.
I'm not. So the thing about our Father's love is that it is a foundational love. So it is a type of love that sets the foundation and teaches you how to love moving forward in your romantic and non-romantic relationships, specifically your father's relationship with you and your father's love, because that is your first connection with a man. With that being missing, or even with it being there, but the connection and there being other things within that relationship that are absent, it sets your foundation up in a way that, like you said, it was hard for you to respect men. And you've even touched on it, like moving forward into relationships, you saw key signs that 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 connection with men wasn't there. I think in a way, if I can just analyze what you were saying, it was hard to trust men because you had seen so much. Do you feel as though if the love if you had known your father from the jump, your relationship with men would have been different. Do you feel as though you would be in the same positions you are or be the same person you are had you had your father in your life from the jump?
Yeah, like if I had a healthy father,
And
someone
which
that was
ways
willing
do you
to love.
feel like your relationships would have been different? Where do you think you would have, how do you think you would have gone about things differently had you had that, had your foundational relationship from your father been different?
I wouldn't have rushed into a relationship, first of all. I wouldn't have basically shown that I wanted more from a guy. I don't know if that's coming across correct, but
You
like
wouldn't have seeked out a
with
man's
me,
attention.
yeah, like I would give 100%, give 100%, give everything, give everything, give everything, and then like the guy is noticing it, and that's where they become lazy. Do you understand what I mean? Like they become emotionally lazy, because you're already giving them everything, so they don't have to work. Do you understand? Because you're basically doing both jobs.
With daddy issues, is that's how we're phrasing it for today. It can be phrased in many different types of ways. What we tend to see is that females seek that love in other places where it's absent from them, from their fathers. They will seek it in other places, kind of trying to fill a hole. In what ways do you feel like you seek that? Was it in sexual acts? Was it just via trying to like seek attention from a male? In what ways do you feel like you filled that hole within your life, that was there due to the issues that you had acquired from, um, the from the relationship you had with your father?
For me, it wasn't even like, oh, I put myself out there and I had a lot of sex. It was people pleasing. So it doesn't matter who you are. If you wanted something of me, whether it be a lift somewhere, whether it be you want me to do your hair, whether we're in a relationship, you want me to have sex with you, I'll be like, okay. I could live in West London, you can't ask me to drop you in Kent. I'll be like, okay. Because it was in me to want to make you happy. Like, I want you to make you happy. I want you to like me. Because maybe I felt like the man who should have liked me never liked me in the first place, or never liked me enough to want to stay at home. So I was always people pleasing. And like I said before, I think I took that attitude into church and started pleasing everyone. But that hole in me was just getting larger and larger and larger. People's, okay, she's a nice person. Okay, you're doing this for me, wasn't enough. Because at the end of the day, you do so much for people, but you don't care for yourself. And you get yourself into sticky situations because the hole or the crack in you is that deep. And the person that should be filling it isn't filling it at all. So I think that for me was the trait that I realized I'm doing everything for everybody, but no one's doing anything for me.
Yeah.
People are damaging me.
Yeah, it's a dangerous
Yeah.
cycle to be in.
Yeah.
And I think even myself, like I recognized at one point, well, not even I recognized, at one point for me, it was, I felt very conflicted in the sense of I I I didn't know whether I deserved to be loved purely because it felt, not that my father didn't love me, but it felt as though my father didn't love me. And because, like you said, that's the first person in your life that's meant to love you. It was this train of thought that was, if the first person that in my life that's meant to love me, the man that is actually obliged to love me, doesn't love me, why should a man that's not even obliged to love me, doesn't have to love me, if I'm not it doesn't seem as though I'm deserving of this love, because you're meant to give it to me regardless, and I'm just not getting it. So if that is the case, how do I not go and expect a man that doesn't actually have all this criteria, doesn't have all these and doesn't actually need to validate me, is not obliged to validate me, is not obliged to love me? How am I going to seek that he loved me? So when I'm in these relationships where men didn't love me in the ways that they should have, it was so easy to accept it because that was the love that I was taught, because love is something that is taught. Of course, it's naturally in us, but it's unlocked and developed by the main carers in our life. So I completely understand where you're coming from with that sentiment. Stephanie?
I think like looking at like my past relationship, I think again it was more like pleasing the person. You wanted things to go right because obviously the situation with your dad is not right, so you just wanted this one situation to go right. And I just really felt like I just tried too hard almost. Yeah, like there's so many things that you could do to try and cover up a situation or heal from a situation or fill up a hole. Like I used to be a smoker, like I used to smoke my life away thinking that cigarette was my friend, do you understand? Like, but it didn't take the pain away, it didn't help, and I was still dealing with the same situation. You know, everything was still toxic anyway. Yeah, so for me, I think it was just trying to just to please them, just so that, you know, I didn't feel like, oh, you know, it didn't work that with that my dad, and you know, it could work with this person, like it can actually work with a man. So yeah.
So, of course, daddy issues, whether we like to say it or not, does come from our fathers and the relationship we've had with them, or maybe not have had with them. Have either of you actually addressed the situation with your fathers and actually spoken to them directly about the issues you feel as though you've inherited from them?
Yeah, so when I actually got pregnant, I was doing the whole church thing, but I was actually on a pastor's program, so I was about to be appointed a pastor.
Oh, wow, girl.
And then, don't be congratulating me.
Okay.
And then I got pregnant, and so when this happened, my dad instantaneously was like, "You guys have to get married. You have to." Yeah, he was like, "This is the best way for not like to cover the shame, and you can still become a pastor in church." So I had to like sit down with him and be like, "I'm not marrying this guy," and he was like,
Yeah.
"Why are you not marrying him?" I was like, "Because he's you." He's you, and I don't want to marry him. And I think that moment, my dad was just like, okay, what do you mean he's me? So I discussed it with him. I was like, this is what I'm seeing. This is who you were. Because my dad right now, he's married. My dad's 60 and his wife is around 30. And they've just had 2 kids. And can you imagine? So I think my oldest sibling is 50 and my youngest is 2. So I was just like, this is not a life I want to have. You know, if I'm seeing the traits in somebody now, I don't wanna be like my mom. I don't wanna be sad. I don't wanna feel like I've been betrayed. And so we had the conversation around my upbringing and what it's done to me. And he was just like, look, you know, at the time, I felt like I was doing right. I was searching for something in a woman and I didn't know what I was searching for, but I thought your mum wasn't it. And he was like, now I'm older and now I've seen and I've been through women. I can see that actually all women are the same. It's just you as a man, you have a certain ability to stay with a particular woman. And he was like, it's something that I developed later on in life. And it's something that your partner will probably develop later on in life. It's a certain wisdom you have just to stay with the decision you've made. He was like, but you're not going to be there for him to figure it out. And he's like, if you don't want to be there, don't be there. And then, so he kind of gave me the go ahead to say, yeah, this relationship isn't for me.
So he acknowledged everything you said and took it on board?
100%. Yeah, he said he was under the wrong influences. He said he thought he was, you know, like a good dad doing God, you know, but he realized that his friends were influencing him in the wrong way, telling him to go out here and, you know, you don't have to stay happily married, you know, you can do other things on the side. And he was listening to them, and I think it was only in his old age that he recognized that this life is tiring, it's depressing, it leaves you broken. And he's decided to make the best out of his situation now. So he's been faithful to his wife now for a long time.
That's really good.
Yeah, but he said, I've recognized this at 60. So are you going to be here getting married now to only let him recognize it when he's 60?
Hey, I know.
Hell
I'm
no.
not.
So he said, okay, you've gotten pregnant. It's unfortunate. You're going to be a single parent. It's unfortunate, but you don't have to be in that situation. Just get up and go.
It's not unfortunate, it's a blessing.
Amen. Amen.
Hey.
Amen. Amen.
Give it some. Hey, preach the word. All right, baby. Steph, have you managed to have that conversation with your father as yet?
No.
Okay, so, and seeing as you haven't had it with your father, would you mind having it here with me now? Girl, okay, so I'm gonna play your father. if you could speak to your father and tell him what you feel and what he's put you through, be as long or short as you want, hit me. I'm your father. Speak to me.
I've had a really rough time, and I feel like if you was there to protect me from the world, I wouldn't have had that rough time. I just needed that father figure in my life, whether he was going to be active, but I just needed you to be there. So I was aware that, do you know what, I do have a father. I deep down do love you because you are my father, but sometimes I still have like major resentment as to like why was I given a father that didn't love me or didn't care? Like, why couldn't I be one of the blessed ones to have a father that was there? But that withstanding, I still love you as a daughter. I would love her father deep down, like even though I probably hide that emotion. I always wanted to be daddy's girl. Like I just wanted to be, I wanted to be a princess. I wanted to be, take me out shopping and buy me a bracelet and do all those things. But I never got that. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Well, girl, as your father or the stand-in father right now, I've received it. And I mean, I know it's just coming from me, so I don't know how much it's worth. But I don't ever want you to feel as though it was a deserving thing. I feel as though it's very important for you to understand and for you to know that you can't take responsibility for your father's actions, and you can't hold that burden. You can't you could not have changed anything. You could not have made him love you any more than he did.
My experiences have shaped me. Like I don't dwell in, oh my God, like I'm a single parent too. Do you understand what I mean? Like I see myself as a strong woman who has 2 beautiful kids, that has a bright future ahead of her. Do you understand what I mean? And there's just so much more to come. So
Amen, girl.
I know, like literally when I say this, like my experiences, like that's my story. That's what's made me. Like I probably wouldn't have it any other way because of how strong I am. And sometimes I actually don't realize how strong I am, but God will never give you something that you can't handle.
Amen.
You understand? So because he knows how strong you are. There are probably people that could not walk in my shoes. Only I can walk in my shoes. So yeah.
And I think sometimes when you read Matthew 5, Jesus is called, I think, the Beatitudes, but there's this like a scripture in there, and it actually says like God will sometimes put you at a disadvantage so that you have the desire to seek him. Because there's some people who have a picture perfect life, picture perfect everything, and because of that they have no urge or desire to seek God or to seek a better life. So I think the fact that you're at this disadvantage, or was at a disadvantage, and you're seeking to do better, you're going to affect so many people, just like you're affecting so many people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But it's because you have a story to tell. And had you not had that story, what impacts would you have had on the world? Sometimes, we're cracked and we're broken so that we can help others. So I wouldn't despise it at all.
Definitely.
Yes. Do you think that the men that you were with were aware that you had daddy issues, and in any way, like, wait, girl, let me finish. You're ready to answer. You're ready to answer already. Do you feel though as though they knew, they were aware that there were residing issues within yourself to do with your father, or that in any way they kind of used that against you?
Oh
because
yeah,
they
definitely.
were aware? Okay, let's go.
Let's
Let's get into it.
Do you know
Let's get
what?
into
The worst thing is opening up to somebody about your issue. And it's not just, a female friend, or do you understand, like your friend and you told her, she told your business, but this is somebody that you are either intimate with physically or mentally, and they use that against you. Now, how do you begin to trust that person and trust other people, trust the next person? Like, you might end up in another relationship after that, but because what you've gone through with that previous person, it's hard to open up to that person. Do you understand what I mean? So I've definitely been in situations where they've used the fact that I have daddy issues, or men issues against me.
Have they ever, very bluntly, I didn't mean to interrupt you, I just wanted to quickly ask, have they ever directly said to you?
Oh yeah, my son's father directly said that I have men issues, and he knew that I have men issues. Do you understand what I mean? Like, I don't see how you telling me, I've already acknowledged that I have issues with men, and then you telling me again that I have issues with men is going to actually help. Do you understand? Obviously, you're just saying it out of spite because you're obviously angry, but instead, I feel like you should help her. Do you understand? Show her what she needs to know, that sort of thing. But maybe that's not the right person to actually show me how to overcome certain things with a man, and clearly it wasn't.
Millie?
Of course they know. I remember when we were going for our gender scan with my ex-partner, and then I was like, I really want a boy, and he was like, I kind of want a boy, but I want a girl, but I don't want a girl. I was like, why don't you want a girl? And he was like, because she's gonna have daddy issues, and then a lot of guys are gonna run through her. And I was thinking, so you know what you do.
See, that's the thing. They know what they do, and then it's like, you don't want to have a daughter because you don't want a guy to do what you're doing to other people's daughters. So why don't you respect these women's daughters and don't do the rubbish that you do?
As women, I think, don't kill me, but I think when you have daddy issues, I think it's obvious. Unintentionally, because we try to compensate for not having a dad. So for me, I was very independent. I was very, you can't tell me about myself.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
in a way, I was unbalanced, and I think guys have a radar and they can see that, she's a bit feisty, or she's very independent, or no one can tell her about herself.
Yeah.
Daddy issues.
Yeah,
I'm going for it.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to what you said in terms of the father of your child doesn't want a girl because he feels as though she will have daddy issues. I have to go back to it because I just have to understand, is this not him recognizing that he does sorry,
he's calling out himself. He's basically doing that.
He doesn't understand that he's the father that is going to give the father issues.
Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe he feels like he's not going to be a good dad, so she will have issues because of his own issues. Or
so basically, he's already said how he's going to behave or how he intends not to be there. Or do you understand what I mean? Or because of that.
Yeah, or maybe he feels like because we're not together, that's going to break her in itself. I have no idea. But you are calling out yourself.
Basically.
Yeah, sorry. I had to... I didn't want to I'm not taking any jabs here. The statement confused me slightly. I just wanted to make sure that I was very clear and completely understood what was said. While we're on the topics of other men outside of our fathers, I believe, me personally, please join me if you feel that I'm right, or correct me if you feel that I'm wrong, that it's not just women that have daddy issues.
Daddies have daddy issues.
Yes, daddies have men have daddy issues too. So with that being said, do you feel as though the men that you have dealt with that have maybe kind of preyed on your daddy issues had daddy issues themselves?
100%. And I think it's because, from my background being in the church will preach and scream that women, don't present yourself in a certain way, be a good wife. But no one's teaching these guys how to be dads or husbands. So you have a lot of unbalanced guys.
There's a lot of things
who want a Proverbs 31 woman.
Guys are not being taught.
Yeah,
it.
they're nothing themselves. So I think that they definitely have daddy issues, and because of those issues, they don't know how to step up to their plate. They don't know how to be a man. They don't know how to control themselves. They don't know how to control their moods, their emotions, their impulses, their rages, because no one's taught them to.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because you would think that because they've already gone through that situation, when they now have a child, they wouldn't want that cycle to repeat itself. And it's very hard to deal with a man that has daddy issues, that doesn't want to accept that he has
the thing.
issues
Yeah.
as well as daddy issues, because a lot of men find it hard to accept those things.
I think because for men, I'm just generalizing here, daddy issues is something that is so, society devotes it to women. They don't speak about daddy issues within guys. And so when a guy does have daddy issues, it's so hard for them to recognize it or to admit to it. And of course, like we said, admitting and recognizing is a first step of the healing process. And because it's so hard for them to admit to or recognize it in the first place, because they don't feel as though, oh, I can't have daddy issues. Daddy issues is for a girl. It stunts everything. It stunts the growth.
It does.
Because if you're not recognizing, you're not healed from it, you're not healing from it, you can't then move forward.
I think that when a guy doesn't have a dad in the home, in a way, it changes his perspective of women, because if you either see women as this,
But before you continue, I just
Yeah.
want to like make that more specific. A man can have a man in his home, and it's not necessarily about whether you have the man in your home or not, because I feel as though, like just with females, just as with males, you can have somebody there, but if that
A
person
male
is
father
not
figure,
a healthy
of
figure,
course, yeah.
then it's not.
Yeah.
So it's not
100%.
necessarily not having the person there. But if you don't have someone that is a healthy role model in your life, then you're still going to have those issues. But please carry on.
No, I think that your perspective of women is altered, because I think either you see women as really strong, your mum can do it, or she's a superwoman. So when you get with a woman, you don't know how to respect a woman because you don't appreciate her struggle. Or you see your dad not respecting your mum, and you kind of learn that behavior unknowingly, because how are you supposed to learn how to respect women or love women correctly if no one's taught you?
With everything we're talking about right now, we touched a lot on our children. So I just want to ask, we've already kind of, let's go directly to you, Stephanie. We've already kind of touched on the fact that daddy issues does then get passed down.
Yeah.
How do you feel as though your child is being, do you think your child is now acquiring daddy issues themselves? And if so, what are the signs that you have seen so far?
The daddy issues that my child, obviously, like, he's only 6, but he's seen a lot. And I feel like even from being in my room and him not knowing, he's been through a lot. But in terms of the relationship with his dad, I can't say there's a solid bond or there is a relationship there, even when, like, his dad has had the opportunity to build a bond with his son, to be in his son's life. I haven't never refused him to bond with his child. The only time I would ever had ever refused him was when he became threatening and domestic violence came into it. Now, my son has witnessed such acts, and that's obviously going to affect him psychologically. Already I've had to deal with my son's behaviors and things like that because his father was in and out of his life and almost never there. Things with school and, issues at school. Like when he was in year 1, his teacher called me aside and was like, "Oh, did your son's father die in the Grenfell Tower?" And I was so shocked. I was just like, "Oh my God, like, no."
That's wild.
And he said that, yeah, like, your son said that he died in the Grenfell Tower. And I said, no, he's alive. But it came down to a psychological issue where he's not seeing his dad. So to him, he doesn't know his dad. He doesn't know where he is. He's not seeing him. He's absent. So he's absent in his mind. So he's gone. Hence why he could think that his dad had died, because people that die go. So for me, that was disheartening that my son, he was, what was he like? Was he five? Yeah, 4 or 5 at the time can say such a thing, you know, and you can't just say, oh, kids will be kids. Kids know what they're saying, you know. So that's already a major issue that I am having to deal with, which is obviously the absence and dealing with somebody that doesn't want to take responsibility as a parent to look after their child. So I am forced to be mother and father. And sometimes it's like the relationship between me and my son, I feel like I have to be father most times because he's a boy. Like, I will love him as a mum and be soft, but I have to like discipline. I have to kind of be tough with him. Obviously, there's certain bits about his character that he does need to be disciplined. Yeah. But I feel like I almost have to play a fatherly role. I already play that role financially, do you understand, on my own. So then when it comes to dealing with certain issues, I have to step in as the man. Emotionally as the man. And even there's been times where I'm just like, okay, there's been an issue at school. He's not hearing me, he's not hearing his grandma. I need a man to speak to him. So I've had to call his godfather, who's been a blessing to us, and be like, speak to him. Do you understand? And he spoke to him and said, you know what you done at school? He said, yeah. And that helped. Do you understand? So it's in a good way, it's good to have someone who's a positive role model that's there, even if the father himself has chosen not to be present.
Do you feel as though you've healed?
I think it's going to be an ongoing thing for the rest of my life, because even being in my role as a health visitor, I know from the ages of 0 to 8, what is being embedded in you formulates your personality and formulates who you are as a person for the rest of your life. So I think ongoing until I die, this will be something that I'm going to have to nurture and take care of, because if I don't, I'll be seeking validation from other people. Yeah, I think, ongoing.
What steps do you feel as though you're taking in this ongoing journey of healing?
I think the first thing was recognizing the issue. So I think because my dad was kind of absent, I started seeking approval from people. So I'd present myself in a perfect way. I would always make sure I look good, or always make sure everything's perfect so that I would be approved of by people. And I think even in my relationship with God, because God is a guy, or you think God is the father, isn't he? So I would relate with him as a father, and I would try to do things that would, in my head, get me approval of God. So when it came to church, I'd be doing the most activities and banging out the most prayer, trying to get approval from God. But in my heart of hearts, that brokenness was still there. And that's why I was seeking validation from sex and other things on the side. So for me, once I recognized that, I had to go back to my understanding of God as a father. And I had to pray and meditate on the word and really understand that his love for me is unconditional. And once I understood that, it helped me have a better standing. And once you realize, like, God loves you for who you are and accepts you for who you are.
Amen, girl. Amen.
I don't need a man to tell me that you need to be this, this, and that. I don't need you to give me your wayward type of love, because I have that perfect love already. And once I had that basis of understanding, I locked off the world for like a week. I prayed. You know, I journaled, like I said, I fasted for a little bit. And I really just tried to see what was wrong with me and my heart, and start a love for God again that wasn't based on my acts, but just based on his word. And I think if I keep that going, hopefully I will see that change moving forward. Yeah.
I like that. I really like that. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I also want to make it very clear that having daddy issues does not define you as a person. You're not alone. Like, y'all are really not alone. I feel like daddy issues is such a universal thing, as much as it's not spoken about. And before I go into a long rant, I just want to close this and say I love y'all so much. Thank you for watching.